we have any questions?
Yeah, you've got what you just hit on, what's job boards to target diverse candidates. And I think the idea of sending out something would be great.
Perfect.
How do you make sure your interviewers are qualified?
And you want to take that one, Ciera?
Yes, yes. So I think sometimes organizations take interviewing too lightly. And they believe that if you have a manager or a hiring manager or a hiring lead in a role, they automatically are equipped because they perhaps know what the job function is. That is not the case, right? Sometimes you have leaders who are true process leaders and their assessment of people is way off the mark. And so if you have not spent time as an organization training your leaders, training your hiring managers to specifically target interviewing skills, skills to look for, questions unanswered, right? Holes or gaps in the applicant's resume or experience, you are doing your organization a disservice. Another thing you should really consider is, are you talking to your interviewers about bias? Are you talking to your interviewers about being very aware of what they're saying to the candidates that they're interviewing? Are you talking to your candidates to be able to speak on behalf of the organization about your diversity and recruitment efforts, about your social activism, about your stance on different social impacts, policies, things happening in the world? Because there is nothing worse than having a diverse candidate sit with a non-diverse hiring manager, ask a question about diversity, and have it shrugged away. There is nothing worse. You will automatically have candidates who say, this is not the organization that I want to be a part of. So all of that training is necessary.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. I have a model that we use called Sparkle that helps you get past some of the things that you talked about. But I do think one of the points that you made is if interviewers are interviewing people, now that you've increased the pipeline of diverse talent and your interviewers are only used to interviewing a certain kind of demographic, now they've got this diverse pipeline of candidates in front that they may not have the same communication cadence or language or even background. It's easy for that bias to creep in. And so I think it's a great point that you make about making sure that you've covered the bias pieces, making sure those interviewers are strong interviewers. They understand how to do an interview. And so and they don't have their own special little question that they always ask candidates that really has nothing to do with the job or the company.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And one of the things that I see often is hiring managers or people who are doing interviews and they get a unique name on a resume, right? And instead of asking up front, hey, can you pronounce your name for me, right? They stammer through it or they avoid the name altogether and depersonalize the interview. And that is the number one thing, right? People want to hear their own name said back. And if you don't do that for a candidate who is diverse and already feeling like they're in an uphill battle, you've already ruled out the potential of a good relationship there.
Great, super. Jeff, is there another question?
What can you do to verify that your sourcing strategy is working and reaching the candidates from the underrepresented groups?
Yeah. So I think one of the things that you need to do is you have to measure. We talked about measuring, right? So you may be measuring your channel efficiency, right? How effective is that channel that you've started to source in? Are you getting the results that you expected? Or is it the right profile that you're getting? That's one of the things that you can do. You can also look at, I think you have to think like a digital marketer or a marketing person. And being a production recruiter, I've never really loved marketing the way I love marketing today, because marketing wins the hearts and souls, right? The marketing takes someone who's a total stranger and turns them into a friend or someone who's knowledgeable or somebody who wants to buy your product or work in your company. I think you have to use the data from some of your recruitment marketing effort to understand if your messages are getting out to the candidates and resonating. I mean, certainly hires is always a great way to tell, but I think there are some indicators that will let you know if your strategy is working, and the faster you can get the data back, the faster you can make adjustments to what you're trying to do. Ciera, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think data is it, right? If you know you've set a goal for your recruitment strategy or your diverse pipeline, if you aren't hitting the numbers, then you aren't really reaching what you're looking to do here. Another one that I would say is just not about hitting the numbers and the quantity, but what does the experience look like once they're in the door? So if you are getting 100% of your goal with recruitment, but then turning over 100% of the people that you bring in, you are missing the mark altogether.
Yeah, no, it definitely makes sense. Jeff, I think we'll take one more question if you've got one, Jeff.
Yep, Ken Button. A lot of times hiring managers look for the perfect candidate, ones that work for X company in a specific job or went to Y university. That can limit diversity in your pipeline. What advice do you have to get hiring managers to think more broadly and openly about the skills they need and not the pedigree of the candidate?
Yeah. Hey, Ciera. Hey, I think I know that Kent Button. Hey, a shout out to Kent. But Ciera, do you want to fill that, and I'll chime in?
Yeah, so I would say if this is happening at your organization and your hiring managers truly do stick to this type of hiring model, what is your company's culture? Because it's obvious that this has been a practice that's been predicated time and time again to continue to bring in folks like this. Kent, you're absolutely correct. You will never be able to get diverse talent this way. And if so, it will be very far and few between. So in that situation, you need your senior leadership to demonstrate that this is not something that they value. Because if they're doing this, obviously that is the practice that they're showing. So I would say that senior leadership needs to encourage diverse hires. They need to encourage candidates who are not from Y university or haven't been poached from X company. That's another one. Poaching is the same way, right? If you are bringing over candidates from other organizations, you will continue to breathe the same type of environment. So your leadership really does have to stand firm on, we want different things, different universities, different people at our organization. Cody, what do you think about it?
Yeah, so this gets back to the really a little bit of kind of impact. If you're hiring for culture fit, let's say, that's a pretty common phrase. Hey, or they weren't a culture fit. Well, culture fit's just an excuse not to make the hire. So if you're hiring for culture fit, that kills your inclusion and diversity effort. The thing that I think hiring managers have to get their heads around is, how do you hire for competencies and values and skills and the behaviors that you're looking to see that makes a person a good member of a team, or that makes them someone who's going to be innovative and creative. You have to talk to those managers in language that they understand, especially if they're in a higher leadership role. And that is the language of impact, meaning how does this impact the sale or our sales organization if we're trying to hire people and we're trying to target a new demographic, right? Because the world is changing and leaders are getting in position who do come from more diverse backgrounds. And so if you can get into a new market, if you're a sales leader, because you hired someone with the background, they understand that market, I think that's key. Developing innovative products, right? If you've brought someone on and you make a hire and that person has a different background, but they help you create a product that's going to appeal to that demographic, that's critical. And I think the biggest thing to get managers to start to make some of these adjustments is to show them what it looks like, right? What does good look like? Because what happens is they only know what they know. What they don't know is, how do I go and make sure that I'm inclusive? How do I make sure that I'm sticking with the candidate? Taking them through a process using AHP or some other model that forces them to prioritize the must-haves will get you to the point where you can actually talk to them and show them the metrics, because AHP allows you, the analytical hierarchy process allows you to actually numerically show them the rankings of their priorities, and they don't argue, especially if it's a technical person. They're not going to argue about the numbers. Now, they may argue about the model, but they're not going to argue about the numbers and consistency and those things. And so you have to push. You just have to keep pushing them to try to do the things that are right and be more objective versus subjective, because they only know how to hire the people that they've hired. And you just have to push them to stick with the candidate with interviewer capability training. and assessment and holding people accountable.